Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So we're back with Wild Rift Fundamentals episode 11, and this time we got a really interesting one. So today I'm going to be talking about the post-game screen. Now they recently updated this in patch 3.3 and I always thought of making a video on it, but just never really gotten around to doing it, but now here we are. So a lot of things has changed in the post-game screen. First up, we have this like the old SVP MVP icon back. If you guys played like I don't know, many months ago, you guys will know what I'm talking about. This is what it used to look like before it became this like A and S like symbol. The MVP SVP used to look like this when Wild Rift first released, and the icons that you see like all these here, they used to be in here, but all the way back when they always used to be like that. So we're gonna of course briefly cover what you see here, then we're gonna go through over here and all of these as well, and you know what is important and what is basically what's important for who. So anyways, here first up I'm just gonna go over what we have here. So of course some of them are quite obvious. So here, first up, we have your game score. Now, I really don't know where this game score comes from, honestly, so I can't really discuss too much about that. So, of course, you have the S and the A, so where S is normally above 90%, and A, I think, is above 80% of players. Then you have, of course, champion damage. So, of course, being a carry, having higher champion damage is good. And tower destruction, of course, whoever you are, tower destruction is normally good, except maybe support tower destruction, not too important. Then we have A. And of course we have the pentakill, quadra kill, and triple kill. Of course you can get those, it is nice. Then we have the legendary. Of course if you're a carry, getting that is nice as well. Player with the most solo kills. Now, this kind of is really subjective because you would think that like maybe the top laners would have it, but really it could be for any role aside from support. Having solo kills is honestly, in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't really matter, but it's just something, you know, that makes you feel a little bit better about yourself, that you can 1v1 someone. Then we have the highest teamfight participation in meaningful fights. Now, I don't know what meaningful fights are, but basically it's teamfight participation. So, basically the person normally with the highest teamfight participation should normally be either the support or jungler, because generally they should be going around the map and participating in teamfights. So, generally, champions like the ADC or the top laner is really hard to get this one. Mid laner might be a little bit easier because they're in the mid lane, but generally this should be the support or the jungle. Player with highest damage dealt to goal ratio. Basically, this means that for every one goal you got, you did more damage compared to someone else when they got that one goal. So basically, this is good. You want to get this if you're a carry. This is highest damage taken to goal ratio. Basically it's the equivalent for a tank. So if you're a tanky champion, like a fighter or a tank, you want to try to have this. Heal shield ratio plus crowd control ratio over player with the highest goal ratio. Basically this is for supports, obviously. So the more you heal and shield and the more you CC people, the higher your score for this will get, and you want to aim for that. Now this is highest total damage taken, so not for per goal, this is highest total damage taken. Of course, if you're a tank, you want this. Player with highest amount of total crowd control duration. So this one, basically, you want to get this if you are someone with a lot of CC. For example, think of it if you're like a Nautilus or Leona, you should be getting this like basically every match if you have a lot of hard CC. And yeah, player of the highest healing amount, obviously that's more like supports, especially enchanters. But if not, they're also for like fighters. Think like Riven, for example, who heals a lot when she fights Irelia, something like that. Player with the highest shielding amount. Now this is pretty interesting because at first glance you think it's for supports, but actually I've gotten this a lot on champions like Yasuo, for example, who has a shield for a passive, or you know, a lot of champions who can like heal and shield of course as well. Most assists, of course, this is mainly for support. Player with highest ward removal or placement. Now this is something that everybody should be aiming to get. This is not something that should be for support or jungle. This is something that everybody should be trying to get. Player of the highest epic monster kill participation. Generally it's going to be the jungler because he should be at all the objectives to smite it. But yeah, but other people should be trying to get this as well. But generally this is basically between the two junglers who gets that. Player who's got first blood. Honestly, this one doesn't actually matter because first blood doesn't actually mean all that much most of the time, like in my opinion at least. Next up, player with the highest goal lead compared to the lane opponent. Now, honestly, this one doesn't really matter all that much either because it's in comparison to your opponent. Of course, that is good because you're always in comparison to your opponent, but yeah, so basically, aside from that, we got player with the most goal. Now, this is, of course, really good to have, especially if you're a carry. And yeah, so this is really not the important part. That's why I'm kind of glossing over everything. But now we're going to move on to the important part, which is what we can actually see here. Now, of course, first thing we can see is, of course, all the summoner spells, the builds, and the KDAs, as well as the goal. So really the only important part here is probably looking at like KDA, like seeing, you know, how you did and how your team did. And yeah. Then next up, we have the actual important part, which are the actual numbers. So this is these like 5 screens are the most important part of the whole stats page. So on the first page, you have damage dealt. Obviously, if you're a carry, you want to have the most damage dealt. And now they have this new feature where they will highlight it if you are doing the most summary. So for example, here you see my 33 is highlighted. So I did the most damage out of all 10 people in the game. And I also have the highest gold out of all 10 people in the game. And whereas the person with the most teamfight participation is going to be Nami, and the person who tanked the most per death is Wukong. So if we take a look at this, of course damage dealt is most important for carry. So in this particular matchup, it's basically between me, Zed, and Vayne, more or less, because Twisted Fate and Darius should set, you know, Nunu, all that, shouldn't be doing more damage than us. Next up, we have damage taken per defeat. Now, personally, I don't quite like this stat. This is basically how much damage you take, total damage you take divided by the number of deaths. So, basically, this makes it such that everybody can actually get this. Now, I've gotten this a lot as an ADC because sometimes I die like no times, 1 or 2 times, and this number becomes really high. So, it doesn't really reflect how much damage you actually took. But so of course basically everybody can aim for this. Next up, teamfight participation. As I mentioned, everybody should be aiming for high teamfight participation, but if you're a support and jungle, even more so. So as you guys can see, Nami has the highest teamfight participation with 94%, 29 out of 31 teamfight participation, which is huge. Whereas Wukong, a little bit lacking there, only 74%. Considering I have 87% as the ADC, Wukong needs to work on his teamfight participation. So next up we have goal. Basically this one, it is not really too much within your control. Of course, you can farm better. If you get kills, you get more gold. Basically any carry wants to be able to get more gold. Now the only real issue here is that if somehow the support gets the most gold. Now if that happens, I have no idea what the team is doing. Alright, next up. This is mainly basically, in my opinion, kind of miscellaneous stuff. So first up is heal and shield. So heal and shield, of course, is really important for supports. Now, as you guys can see, Nami, of course, did the most healing and shielding. But as you can see, closely behind, actually, we have Sett and Nunu. So Sett, of course, that is a result of him building items like Divine Thunder, and also Sett having a huge shield on his W really helps him boost up that stat. Nunu, of course, has a huge heal on his Q, so helps him boost up that stat as well. So, as I mentioned, really important for supports as well as those tanky fighters. Next up, CC duration, of course, yet again, is really important for normally it's the support, but anybody else who does a lot of CC. So, as you guys can see here, Nami has the most CC duration with 106, of course with the bubble and the wave. Pretty simple. As you guys can see, I have 0 because Kai'Sa has absolutely no CC. Same goes with Zed. And yeah, so other people like Wukong should be having a lot higher score than 23, by the way, because obviously he has a huge teamfight ultimate and knocks up a lot of people. So not too good on Wukong. Wukong needs to work on his ult as well. So this is why this page really helps. It kind of tells you where you're lacking and where you're doing good at. So if you guys can see like Wukong CC duration not too good, teamfight participation not too good, you can identify areas you want to work on. So next up is epic monster kills. Now this one, in my opinion, actually really does not matter. Why doesn't it matter? Because actually it does. Actually, why am I talking about? It does matter. I was actually thinking about something else, but this one does matter. So as you guys can see, Wukong got 1 and Nunu got 5. So obviously we're not doing too well on objectives. Now this is not a reflection on the jungler only. Of course, objectives require the whole team to help out. So while I wouldn't read too much into this because sometimes it's affected by your team, as a jungler you should try to get more epic monster kills. Now, number of words placed and destroyed. As I mentioned, you should be aiming for as high a number for this as possible. So Darius has the most with 12. As you guys can see, I got 11, just one behind him. A lot of people got really high scores actually. Nami with 11 as well. Set also with 11. And Lulu with 12. Now, someone who obviously is lacking here is obviously Nunu. Nunu has only 4 wards placed or destroyed. So Nunu definitely has to be working on that part. Now onto the next screen. This is basically the damage screen. This is basically total damage dealt, which is the one you saw on the first screen as well, which is the summary. And then we also have the damage conversion ratio. So basically what this is of course how efficient is your gold use. So as you guys can see, Set has the most efficient gold use at 1.5, sorry, 1.3 is me. 1.5 on the Set, which basically means that he, for the least amount of gold he had, did the most amount of damage, whereas I did the most amount of damage overall. So obviously, as if you're a carry, you want to have both of these stats really high, if at all possible. And next we move on to the tanky stats. So first up we have the total damage taken. As you guys can see, Set had the most total damage taken. And honestly, everyone else is kind of quite evenly distributed. Then we have damage taken per defeat, which, as I mentioned, is how much damage you took divided by the number of times you died. So in this case, Wukong is the highest. I personally think this stat is not too important because everybody can be aiming for that. Then we have the damage to gold ratio. So of course, if you're a tank, you want to have this as high as possible. Now as you guys can see, if you're a carry, generally this is going to be below 1. So like I got 0.7, Nami 0.9, Zed 0.5, Vayne 0.8, and Lulu 0.7. So basically, of course, we do have Twisted Fate at 1, which basically is even. So, but of course we have the tanky champions like Darius, and as well as like Nunu and Set having higher than 1. Technically, not Sun. Oops, wrong game. Wukong and Nunu should also be having a lot higher than 1 and 1.1. But yeah, those are areas that they have to work on. Now for the last page, what we have is basically the miscellaneous stats, which is kind of again the miscellaneous. So this is sort of like a mishmash of stats. Now the one that actually doesn't matter is the number of towers pushed, but we'll get into that later. First up, we have total gold. Now obviously having more gold is always going to be good no matter what kind of role you are, but particularly if you are in a carry role. In my case, I got the most gold of the game, so I'm satisfied with that. Really close behind is actually Zed though, so Zed's doing a good job. Vayne is not too far off, as is Twisted Fate not too far off. So basically no one is really that poor in terms of goal. Obviously supports have the least goal. Darius with a very little goal considering he's the top laner. Next up we have Monster Farm. Now this one, very obviously is going to be a 2-horse race between the 2 junglers. No one should really be having a really high monster farm aside from the 2 junglers. But as you guys can see, the 2 ADCs, me and Vayne, have a decent amount of monster farm. That's because when you're in ADC, when you're in like the mid game, in like neutral game, you should be farming monster camps as well to keep up your goal, as I always mention in my video. So this is how you can check if you actually have been doing that. So you should be having, it's an ADC, you should be having a decent monster farm unless the game ends in 10 minutes or so. And next we have minions. So number of minions killed. If you're a carry, you want this number to be high. As you guys can see, I have 102, barely beating out the Zed at 101. Vayne is 82. So basically you want, of course, to have this as high as possible. It means you farmed really effectively, farmed minions really effectively. So really satisfied that I got, this stat. And last one is number of turrets pushed. Now this is the one that actually doesn't matter. Now the reason why this doesn't matter is it only takes into account who did the last hit of the turret. It doesn't actually take into account how much tower damage you did. So you could be someone who did like 99% of the tower damage to all 9 towers in the game, but somebody else got all the last hits, and you would still get a 0 score for this. So this one really only takes into account who took the last hit of the tower. So basically, if you guys can see, my team took down 5 towers, enemy team took down 4 towers, and out of those 5 towers we took, Darius took 2, I took 2, and Nami got the last hit on 1 of them. So this stat honestly is completely ignorable. If they removed it, it wouldn't even really matter, basically. So that is pretty much it for going through the post-game screen. Now, it was a little bit rushed, but hopefully you guys could understand what I was talking about. Hopefully it helped you guys in terms of understanding which stat is important for who and what you need to work on. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video, and goodbye.